Harlem breathes like a living giant, loud on the surface yet trembling underneath. The streets are alive with jazz, laughter, and movement, but there is a shadow no one speaks about. Racial tension wraps around the city like a storm cloud waiting to burst. And standing in the center of this world is Bumpy Johnson, a man whose name commands respect and fear alike. He is power wrapped in calm, intelligence hidden behind silence, and Harlem moves carefully because of him. But power invites challenge, and tonight that challenge is coming closer with every passing second. Inside the Palm Cafe, time feels slower, safer, like the outside world has no permission to enter. Soft jazz plays through the warm haze of cigarette smoke, while quiet conversations float through the air. Bumpy sits at his table like a king on his throne, speaking little but controlling everything around him. His presence alone changes the atmosphere, commanding respect without a single raised word. Men stay close out of loyalty, not fear, because his leadership is earned, not forced. Behind his calm eyes lives strategy, discipline, and the sharp intelligence that made him Harlem's undisputed ruler. And tonight that calm is about to be challenged in a way no one inside this cafe is prepared to face. The calm inside the Palm Cafe shattered the moment officers Patrick Sullivan and James Kowalski walked through the door. Their presence alone demanded attention, badges flashing, hands brushing against the grips of their service weapons, as if daring anyone to challenge them. They moved with a posture of dominance, shoulders squared, eyes scanning the room like predators marking territory. Sullivan's voice cut through the music and conversation as he announced their purpose loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You're under arrest, Bumpy Johnson, for illegal gambling, narcotics, and assaulting a police officer last week." His words carried contempt, and when he spat out a racial slur, the cafe seemed to shrink, tension pressing down on everyone like a weight. The patrons froze, silent fear and quiet anger mingling, each person aware they were witnessing more than a simple arrest. They were seeing a challenge to the very order of Harlem. Bumpy Johnson looked up slowly, the cigar balanced between his fingers, and his eyes held a mixture of amusement and contempt. He didn't move from his seat. Instead, he leaned back slightly, letting the officer's aggression play out before him, before speaking in a voice calm, deliberate, and laced with irony. "Which paycheck came in this week, Sullivan?" he asked, tilting his head just enough to let the question linger. "Was it Vincent Gigante or someone from City Hall?" The question landed like a thunderclap, and in that instant, the balance of power in the room shifted. Sullivan's face flushed red with rage as he tried to pull Johnson from his chair, but Bumpy remained unmoved, his weight and presence impossible to challenge without help. The first psychological crack appeared, and everyone in the cafe understood that the man they feared was not intimidated by the law, by violence, or by authority. Just 2 minutes after Sullivan and Kowalski had cornered Bumpy Johnson, the cafe door swung open again. Detective Marcus Thompson entered with quiet authority, his presence cutting through the tension like a knife. At 38 years old, one of the few black detectives in the 28th precinct, Thompson carried himself with confidence that demanded respect without a single raised voice. He walked directly toward the scene, stopping between the two white officers and the door, his eyes calm but unyielding. "Officers," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "what's the basis for this arrest?" The question was simple, but its effect was seismic. The cafe fell into a hushed silence, every patron straining to catch what would happen next. Sullivan's hand, still gripping Johnson's arm, tried to brush him aside. "This doesn't concern you, Detective. We're executing an arrest." Thompson stepped closer, his calm authority refusing to bend to intimidation. "Show me the warrant. Show me the incident report about the alleged assault you cited last week. Where's your evidence?" The officers exchanged glances, their confidence faltering, their aggression now exposed as hollow. Without a warrant, without probable cause, without documentation, their arrest was illegal, and Thompson made it clear. The cafe was frozen, each witness silently registering history in the making. A black detective challenging white officers openly in Harlem, refusing to defer, demanding accountability. Sullivan's face flushed from red to purple, rage building, hands trembling with frustration. Kowalski could no longer hide his unease, their words faltering, their supposed authority crumbling under Thompson's unwavering legal stand. The officers were forced to step back, releasing Johnson's arm, the balance of power decisively shifting. After a tense silence, Sullivan finally muttered, "This isn't over." His voice full of anger but empty of control. Johnson's calm voice cut through. "Sullivan, Kowalski, you tell Vincent Gigante and whoever else is paying you that this isn't over until I decide it's finished. You understand?" The two officers left, faces tight with humiliation, while the cafe remained suspended in awe. Bumpy turned to Thompson, extending a quiet, grateful acknowledgement. "Thank you, Marcus. You didn't have to do that. Could cost you your career." Thompson shrugged, his voice steady. "Could, but I didn't become a cop to watch other cops break the law. Those two are dirty. Everyone in the precinct knows they're dirty. Someone needed to stop them." Bumpy nodded, understanding the warning Thompson added in a low voice meant only for him. "They work for Vincent Gigante. They will come back, and when they do, it'll be worse." After the tension at the Palm Cafe, the story didn't end. It escalated in ways no one in Harlem or the NYPD expected. James Kowalski left the 28th precinct at 11:15 p.m. on Wednesday, September 16th, expecting a routine night drive home. He never made it. His car was found the next morning, parked 2 blocks away on 126th Street, doors unlocked, keys in the ignition, no signs of struggle. What the official reports didn't mention, but what witnesses later revealed, was that 4 men, identifying themselves as working for Bumpy Johnson, had intercepted Kowalski. They were polite but firm, making it clear Kowalski had a choice: come voluntarily for a conversation or face consequences he could not control. He chose cooperation and was taken to a warehouse in the Bronx, outside NYPD jurisdiction and far from anyone who might recognize him. Inside, Johnson explained the situation clearly. Kowalski had tried to arrest Johnson on fabricated charges. Now it was time to account for his actions. After approximately 30 minutes of tense discussion and measured physical persuasion, Kowalski began writing. 2 hours later, he produced a detailed confession, exposing not only his own corruption, but also the names of 23 other officers in the 28th precinct who were taking bribes from Vincent Gigante's organization. Patrick Sullivan's disappearance followed shortly after, but with even more dramatic execution. Early Thursday morning, September 17th, Sullivan was stopped at a seemingly legitimate police checkpoint on the Triborough Bridge. 4 men in police uniforms approached, surrounding him, and informed him he was being detained on Bumpy Johnson's orders. Expecting routine treatment from fellow officers, Sullivan was unprepared for what followed. He, too, was taken to the same Bronx warehouse, where Johnson greeted him personally and laid out the terms. Sullivan resisted longer than Kowalski, claiming his decorated service and warning that the NYPD would come for him. Johnson's response was calm, strategic, and devastating. The NYPD cared little about Sullivan. His career and reputation were already compromised. Eventually, Sullivan broke, producing a confession even more detailed than Kowalski's, covering nearly 8 years of corruption, bribes totaling around $60,000, and listing 47 officers in total, almost 40% of the precinct, who had been systematically compromised. The stakes could not have been clearer. The confessions didn't just expose 2 officers, they revealed a network of corruption implicating the NYPD, organized crime, and even local politicians. Vincent Gigante's influence over the precinct was documented in detail, and councilmen who had paid officers for protection and silence were named explicitly. What began as a confrontation in a cafe had escalated into a crisis that, if made public, could destroy careers, indict powerful criminals, and shake public trust in law enforcement to its core. Bumpy Johnson now held leverage that surpassed any weapon, absolute documentation signed in the handwriting of the corrupt, and a threat potent enough to force both criminals and cops into submission. The next afternoon, September 18, 1964, Bumpy Johnson did something that no one in Harlem, or certainly no one in the 28th precinct, expected. He walked straight into the precinct headquarters, leather briefcase in hand, flanked by his attorney Theodore Green, and 2 silent, imposing bodyguards. The chatter of desks and telephones stopped the instant he stepped through the door. Officers froze mid-motion, recognizing immediately who had arrived and what his presence implied. Without a hint of hesitation, Bumpy approached the front desk. "I'm here to see Captain Morrison," he said evenly, his voice calm but commanding. "Tell him Bumpy Johnson would like to discuss the current whereabouts of officers Patrick Sullivan and James Kowalski and certain irregularities in police conduct that have come to my attention recently." The precinct fell into absolute silence. Every officer present understood, without a word spoken, that Bumpy Johnson was connected to the disappearances and that he was daring enough, or crazy enough, to walk directly into the heart of the NYPD. Within minutes, Captain Robert Morrison emerged from his office, flanked by Lieutenant Frank Chen, his expression a mixture of anger, fear, and grudging respect. "Mr. Johnson," Morrison said coldly, his tone clipped, "you're either the bravest man in Harlem or the stupidest. Come into my office now. Your attorney may accompany you. Your bodyguards will remain in the lobby." Johnson followed calmly, placing the briefcase on the desk as Green and the two bodyguards positioned themselves strategically. Once the door closed, the tension became almost unbearable. Morrison's fury radiated from every line of his face, his hands gripping the edge of his desk as he demanded answers. "Where are my officers, Johnson?" Morrison's voice cracked with both rage and disbelief. "What have you done with Sullivan and Kowalski? If they've been harmed, I swear I'll have you arrested for kidnapping, assault on police officers, every charge imaginable. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Now tell me, where are they?" Bumpy Johnson opened the briefcase slowly, removing two neatly folded documents. "They're confessions," he said calmly, placing them on Morrison's desk. "Your officers are safe. They're being held in a secure location, treated well, fed regularly, and questioned, only enough to obtain information on corruption. I will release them unharmed within 24 hours once we reach an understanding about certain matters." Morrison's eyes widened as he realized the weight of the papers in front of him.